name is Nathan Cross.
I'm Ryan Riley. We are the New Age Villains.
And you are watching Hashtag Truth with Scott Larson.
Roll it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hashtag Truth. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to make this a call-in show. I will be putting the number up on the screen in a few minutes. You can call into that number, and you can be part of the show. Talk to me about today's topic. Today's topic for this call-in show is going to be, should wrestling, professional wrestling, have a rule book? A true rule book. Now, hear me out before you start sending comments and getting into the actual gist of things, or before I put the number up and you call in. Hear me out when I say, should professional wrestling have a rule book? All right. Number one, I've always considered professional wrestling a sport. Hear me out again. If you're not okay, it's sports entertainment. It's blah blah blah. Okay, but listen, to me, it's a sport because one, you have to train. All sports, you have to train. You know, you have to become a professional in them. You have to be good in them, and there are levels. There are levels in every sport. Okay, but wrestling seems to be the only one that doesn't have a rule book. You go to Major League Baseball, you go to the National Basketball Association, you go to National Football League, soccer, hockey, golf. I don't care what sport, tennis. I don't care what sport you go to. You have a rule book. It's this thick for each one of them. If you ever seen a real rule book for like the NFL or anything, it's like this thick. You want to know why? Because it not only gives you the rules on the field, and I'm using the NFL as an example, on the field, but it gives the rules off the field too. What makes you a professional? And if you break these rules, you're no longer a professional. You get fined, you get, suspended from playing the game, blah, blah, blah. Why can't professional wrestling come up with a rule book like all the other sports? Wouldn't that we always talk about, and there's a lot of great minds. I'm not saying this in a negative way. I'm saying it in a positive way. With all the great minds out there that we have for professional wrestling, and everybody's always, well, that's a rule of wrestling. That's a rule. But where are the rules written down? You can't show me that rule book. Why is there not a rule book? Okay. Why is there not a formula to how you should act? I mean, everybody knows it, but why not write it down, make it legit, and that way these and make it for rules for owning a wrestling company, for the owners and the promoters. Make it for the unwritten doesn't matter, James. Unwritten rule book doesn't matter. I'm talking about when somebody breaks a rule in professional wrestling and isn't professional or isn't this or isn't that. We talk about it all the time. But where are you getting this from? Well, it's an unwritten rule. Oh, then it's not a rule. Go to the NFL, break a rule, and say, well, that's an unwritten rule. They're going to laugh at you. Why can't we do that for professional wrestling? That's the question. I mean, is there really a formula for professional wrestling? There seems to be one for every other sport because of the rule book. Is there a formula for professional wrestling? And don't give me there's a formula for putting a card together. There's a formula for, this, that. I'm talking about, is there a rule book? It's handed down through time. How? Because if it's handed down by people talking and saying, anybody could change the rule book, James. I could say you could be the biggest molester in the world, but you can still become a professional wrestler. But the unwritten rule, like you say, is, we don't want pedophiles nowhere near our kids, nowhere near the stands, nowhere near this, nowhere near that. Why not make it a real rule book? why can't we bring wrestling organizations, or have a wrestling organization over the whole U.S., not just one state, two states doing it, the little South Carolina, thing, and some states don't have. Why not just cover all states? Have the rules. I mean, I know there's probably a lot of 16-year-old wrestlers right now that are going, Scott, shut up. I won't be able to wrestle if you do this. But hey, if it's a rule, it's a rule. You know what I'm saying? And look where, okay, James, I love to death that you're the one talking over here, but the wrestlers police what? Because I hear stories every day of bad crap happening in wrestling. Where are we really policing that? We've already had that discussion. That was a couple of days ago. But is there a rule book that somebody can point to and say, hey, you're a piece of crap. You're breaking this rule. You're breaking this. I'm just curious if there's enough people who care about professional wrestling that would really want to see something like, wouldn't it weed out the bad product that you're talking about? That we all talk about, the bad promoters who don't have the money or don't have this or don't have that, can't get this, can't get that, always, that would weed it out, because there'd be a rule. There'd be you have to do this, you have to do that. There should be. And that's what I want to discuss. I mean, why not have a rule book? Every other sport that I know of has a rule book, okay? I mean, the rules are made as you go along in professional wrestling. At least that's the way it seems to me. And I love professional wrestling. Well, here's I mean, I'm just throwing out suggestions here, Drago, but hear me out here. If there was a true wrestling commission over all 50 states in the United States, and it covered all 50 states, and they came up with a commission, came up with a committee of, big time, why not put that together and make a rule book about what you can and can't have, what how the wrestler should act in and outside, and the promoters got the authority of this and that and the other, and make it all rules. And if you get it, you get suspended. That's what I'm saying. You're making my argument for me, James. There's not one. I know that. Why isn't there not one? Wrestling's been around forever. Money? No. Money? No. No. Because then you're telling me that MLB, NBA, and all that. No. That has nothing to do with money. These rules have been around for years with those other sports. You don't know the difference between a wrist lock and a wristwatch. There's some people who talk about pro wrestling. Then there's this total nit. I mean, okay, fine. If you say I'm being stupid, that's fine. Dan, thank you for calling me stupid, but nobody can answer my question legitly. Because can you answer that question, Dan? I mean, it's okay to call. I could easily turn around and call you names back, but I have a talk show, and I'm trying to, I'm trying to save professional wrestling from the mud pit that it's becoming. And nobody wants to talk about it. This attitude right here is why professional wrestling is going to be 75 to 80% mud shows all over the world, and half the people don't get it right. That attitude. And I love that. Thank you, Dan. Keep bringing the attitude, because you're proving my point. Real Drago said, I agree about the book, the rule book. I agree. Why not? Why not? Everybody that I've ever talked to on my talk show that has stories and this and that has a complaint and this and about this and that. Everybody knows wrestling. Everybody knows the unwritten rules. Why not make them written rules? Why not make it to where, you can make it to where kids have to train in order to be a professional wrestler instead of begging kids to do it? They have to do it. If there's an actual rule book out there, or you know what I'm saying? If there's an actual set of, laws or what have you, that sets a precedence of what they have to do. I just told you, James. There would have to be a commission over all 50 states. They make a board who makes the rules, and they have to send out people. And of course, it's going to go into you're going to have to pay wrestling fees. You're going to have to do this. Yeah, some money's going to be involved. Of course, you have to, but it will police it. Do you see what I'm saying? If you don't have people policing, then then pay a police force. Okay, I agree with that too, Piercy. But the thing is, you got again. I'm going to tell you, out of 20 organizations in your area, how many are legit, really good companies? Be real. Be honest. How many, if they just brought in a camera, would be WWE quality that people would want to watch all the time? Seriously, sit down and be serious about this, and not just, well, there's great promotions all over the place. I'm trying to be real with my talk, man. Every wrestling company wants to be legit has to pay for that commissioner and have a vote. See, that's what I'm talking about. See, this is somebody who's coming to the table with now that these companies have to form a conglomerate and work with each other to make that happen. Well, in a way, it's going to happen anyway, or nothing's ever going to get done, Harry. And I do agree with every bit of what you just said. Because those rules don't just apply to the NFL. It applies to all the conglomerates underneath it, all the way down to the leagues that start your NFL career. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Call me a fool. Yeah. Okay. Whatever. Now you're just going too far. What? But we complain and have problems all the time, but nobody wants to solve the problems. Let's just move on from the problem. And I'm seriously trying to make some serious talk here. I'm not saying I got the answer to everything. I'm actually asking a legit question. Why can't professional wrestling get a legit 50-state commission and make a rule book for wrestlers, promoters, this and that, get together and actually, weed out the bad ones? And again, he's right, but no one's going to do that. Why? Why? The only reason I could think that no promoter would want to do that is because their promotion ain't up to snuff. The only reason why I would think a wrestler wouldn't want to do that is a wrestler ain't up to snuff. Let's just be honest. Let's talk real talk. Let's talk hashtag truth. If you're up to snuff, you got all your, paperwork and this and that to wrestle everywhere. You're doing everything the legit way, and you're getting bookings, and people are loving you, and they're buying your merch. Then you're doing it the right way. Same with an organization. What's the difference if there's a commission over you or not? Why not make the rules for everybody so everybody knows the rules you're breaking? I'm just saying. Why is it that, it's okay to do something over here, but it's not over here? And that's where the lines get blurry all the time and this and that. Why not unblur everything? And instead of saying, well, that's just the way it's been since the inception of wrestling, or that's the way it's been for 30 years, why not have real talk and get it done? That's my question. Every time I bring up a question, it's, oh, you're stupid, Scott. You have no idea. This is a Mark talking wrestler, don't know nothing. But yet I'm looking every day and I'm seeing this stuff every day, and I'm hearing about this stuff every day. But when you ask somebody a question, they don't want to answer. They want to give you well, it's been that way forever. Well, why? I don't know. It's just been that way forever. Well, you can't change it. Well, of course you can't, because you don't want to try. That's what I'm saying. All these people who have a reason for it not to change, or why it hasn't changed, give me a reason why it can change and why it should change. Because we know everybody does that. I know everybody that's tuning into this has complained at one time or another, or has, even if you're a company, has complained about wrestlers at one time or another, or all this. James, I just said it for the 5th time. You make a commission over all of the United States for wrestling. The Wrestling Commission makes a board who makes the rule book up and goes by, every state, they have representatives come into the commission, and you make a rule book, and there's thousands of companies, but there's not thousands, but everybody should be abiding by the same rules, James. What does it matter? You could have 10 billion companies. There could be 10 billion Major League Baseball teams, but they still got to abide by the Major League Baseball rule book. Do you understand what I'm saying? Stop with there's too great a number to start now. No, there is, because when you start making those rules, the ones that can't follow the rules, the ones that can't do that, we're going to lay waste to them because they can't. You're fined $10,000 for not having a legit ring and safety equipment there at your show. You have a $10,000 fine for, this or that or the other if you break the rules. Those people aren't going to be able to keep paying those fines. They're going to eventually have to shut down, and the real companies will remain. I'm sitting here to have some real talk. Michael King says it takes everyone to make it change, but not everyone wants it to change. On top of that, you're going to be able. Are you going? But again, Mike, it's the same thing I'm talking about. Just like politics, if you vote this person in, this person better have your interest at heart. That's going to make those rules. You know what I'm saying? There's no perfect way to do this. But what I'm trying to do, Mike, is give people talk about it all the time, man. We need this, we need that. Why not make it real talk? Then you have backyard wrestling all over. No, you won't, because you'll have people being fined left and right, and people ain't got that kind of money. Let's be legit. 50% of the people that are running shows right now run from show to show, run from their shoot jobs. Half of them can't even pay to do a whole show because they ain't got the money. They need the help from 3 other people. Let's be legit. Let's talk real. When you come to the hashtag truth and you want to sit at this table, let's talk realism. And if there was rules out there for everyone, including owners, including wrestlers, and just like Major League Baseball, they not only tell people how to be on the field or in the ring, they tell people how to act outside the ring. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't do this. If you do, there's grounds for people to say, no, sorry, you can't wrestle with me because you haven't got this much training, or you haven't got, if it's rules, if you legit make it, you have to have 3 years of training at a certified wrestling school. And then that conglomerate that we just made makes certified wrestling schools, then you're going to see really good wrestlers out there. Do you see what I'm saying? You can build it like a company. Mike's got to know what I'm saying right now. You can build professional wrestling as a whole under a business model. You can do it. It's just, do you want to do it? And because like Mike said, for everybody who ain't 100% legit and can do this and can do that, it'll weed a lot of those guys out. You know what I'm saying? You skipped my comment, Scott. Okay, well, let's see which one I did. You're definitely not a fool, Scott. These companies are not together, and they won't come together for something that makes sense, like your proposal here. It would be pure chaos trying to get promoters to sit down and agree, let alone vote on a leader to lay it out. But if they pass laws in all 50 states for a commission to be had, you know what I'm saying, Harry? There's a way. There is a way. I'm not saying there's no perfect way. No, there's not. Bill Hazelwood, I'm glad. How do you plan on telling someone who wants a promotion that do plan to do their business? WWE have rules. However, you are comparing Harvard with the 3rd grade. Okay, what I'm saying, Bill, is this. I'm not saying don't tell them how to run their business. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is lay rules out. Like, you have to have this, you have to have all this safety equipment, you have to have safety guardrails. They have to be this far from the ring. They have to, make rules, because Major League Baseball, NBA, all that, they do that. Why can't wrestling do that? I'm not saying tell them how to run their promotion, who to get, you know what I'm saying? That's not what I'm saying. But we always talk about making indie wrestling better, that we want to have the best wrestlers, the best shows out there. We want to get rid of these mud shows. I'm just trying to give a conversation. I'm making a conversation of why don't we have a rule book that would weed a lot of these people out, like the Major League Baseball does, like NFL does, like, and it can start at a company like WWE and legit come out. But the part I understand is everybody's got to agree to it, and they're not going to. South Carolina Commission has rules. North Carolina doesn't more mud shows in North Carolina. I get that, but I'm just saying that if that commission bill, if there was a commission that covered all 50 states and they made a rule book, okay, and they put all the rules. I'm talking about general rules, not rules like but rules to go by, like, all the companies have to have, like I was saying, the list of, this, that, the other. They have to have the safety equipment. They have to have this. And you know what I'm saying? We all know what they are. We all know the safety equipment that should be at a wrestling match, at least the people that are really into wrestling and all that. And, if you're a wrestler, in order to wrestle in any of the 50 states, you have to be certified at a wrestling school. You have to have, a certain number of years, sort of play it like college. You have to have a certain number of years, get a degree, and then you can go out and wrestle. That would solve the problem of every Tom, Dick, and Harry wanting to wrestle, because you had to pay. And the board up here would commission out, would go and certify the schools. And that's not hard to do. We all know what are the good schools and what are the bad schools and what are the schools that are just don't. We know who those are anyway. So I'm just saying, put a legitimacy to them. That's my big word for the day, legitimacy. Am I wrong in saying that? It's a talking point. I know it's not going to happen overnight. I know probably 90% of the people that are watching this are saying that, whatever. But how can we complain every day if we're not trying to solve the problems? That's why I'm having this talk. That's why I'm let me open the phones, man, because I'm pretty sure there's a few people who would love to get in here. All right, phone number is 864-497-3784. I've got my phone fired up. I am ready for anybody who wants to call. If they want to have this talk with me online, I would love to have you call in. It's just... Harry Bernard Taylor said the NWA have rules and bylaws in place for 36 years, and they voted on presidents to lead the promotion. A lot of companies, but see, the companies up there, the big companies are doing that, Harry. But what I'm saying is we need something over all of it. You know what I'm saying? Like baseball does. Baseball has their rule book, MLB, and anybody who wants to be associated with Major League Baseball going down the line, the colleges and all that, they have to agree to the Major League Baseball, the Major League Baseball. Okay, let's see if we got a caller here. Hello, welcome to Hashtag Truth. We are talking about a rule book for all of wrestling. What do you think?
Hey, Scott, this is Jared. I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
I mean, to be quite frankly honest, it does definitely need to be talked about.
That's the reason why I'm bringing it up. I know if it happens, it wouldn't happen overnight. I'm sure Bill Hazelwood, and I see him over here, he's talking money and all that. And that's the talk that's the real talk we need, is people who are going to sit down and say, okay, let's do this. I understand a lot of states already, and he's saying that a lot of states, if I'm just kind of skimming, but that would put it. Wow. I'll just read what he said. Bill said, And there are rules now. A promotion is supposed to have $1 million liability insurance policy. To all those watching, raise your hand if your promotion has that. Oh my gosh. I don't know of many that do, Bill. I'm just saying. So that's what I'm talking about. But is there a written rule that says that? Is that just for the states that have a commission? Like you mentioned South Carolina, New York, Virginia, Kentucky. Those all have commissions, correct? So why not make that a 50-state thing? What's that?
There's a lot of them that do. There's some in the state of West Virginia that do too.
Right. Well, if some of them do, they all have to. I'm just saying, if there's a commission for the state, it covers the whole state. But you have to follow those rules. And that's why, again, South Carolina, and the commission itself isn't perfect, But what I'm saying is, if you have a commission, an overall commission, like a board over all 50 states, and make that rule for all 50 states, make all these rules for all 50 states, I think you'd see some of these companies that and these wrestlers and put more stringent, rules on them to make them be good, to make them train, to make them want to, it. In other words, if they're gonna make this is gonna be a lifestyle. Just by the rules, you're gonna have to follow the rules and make this a lifestyle and do everything. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna weed away a lot of these who do wrestling as a hobby. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I just, do you have anything to add to the book or anything, or any rules?
I definitely agree, Scott. I definitely think for people who take it, and for my perspective, speaking of, like, if you're into drugs or into alcohol, and you do that and you don't go by the rule book, that's gonna mess your whole career up right there.
Right.
I'm speaking because of that.
I got
Like,
you.
for instance, the Matt Riddle incident, the Jeff Hardy incident.
Right.
But
those are totally different rules, because, like everyone was saying, WWE and that has that set of rules. They have a set of standards that you have to follow. I mean, Mandy Rose is a perfect example. She went outside the box with some pictures and bam, she was fired. It was like that quick. She knew the rules. You know what I mean?
They told her not to do it, and yet she still did it.
But WWE could point right at that rule. Look at the contract. This was the rule in your contract. You broke. You know what I'm saying? Why can't we have that wrestling wide? Why can't we have something? That's the question. You know what I'm saying? All right, brother. I appreciate you giving the call. I'm going to give some time for other folks to call in. Thank you for calling in, man.
Thank you, Scott. Everybody have a great day.
All right, there you go, man. We got a lot of people talking. I said the NWA had rules. I know. I get it. All the big companies have rules, Harry. I mean, but why can't we do that wrestling wide? If promoters could get along and work together, you can have a circuit with requirements. Okay. I mean, that's cool for a few promoters, but I'm talking wrestling wide, Mike. Why stop at just a few promoters? Why can't we? Why do we have to do just a few promotions? Why can't we do wrestling wide? Why can't we make wrestling sort of like, they're trying to do it in WWE and AEW and all that. You see it. They're doing the same thing that Major League Baseball and NBA and all that is. They have their big shows. They have their training shows, like NXT and Friday night, whatever they call it on AEW. And then you have, where you go and you train, and you have to be, you know what I'm saying? WWE does that. Wouldn't it bring up professional wrestling as a whole if everybody did that? What's wrong with people doing wrestling as a hobby? Okay, the reason, what I mean by hobby is people who aren't in it to win it, who don't want. A lot of these people, Jason, you got to agree with me. You don't have to, but it sounds logical to me. A lot of these people are doing it for a hobby. Number one, they're not safe most of the time because they don't care. They're not going to the next level. They don't care if they accidentally mess up a move here and there or break somebody's arm or do this. I don't want somebody who's in it as a hobby if I can get the people in it that want to be in it to make it a career. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with it being a hobby, but it shouldn't be a hobby. I want more. I want more out of my wrestlers. You know what I'm saying? That's just me as a fan. The good promoters do get along, and I understand that. And I understand that that's Cole Maccabee Pro Wrestling Union. I understand that the good promoters do get along. The good promoters follow those rules that WWE have. If you do this, that you're gone. But not all companies do that. And what I'm saying is, how hard would it be to make a rule book that everybody can sign, that everybody, again, I'm going to go from the top to the bottom. Let's see if we got another caller here. Hello and welcome to Hashtag Truth. We're talking about maybe getting a rules book for all of wrestling. What do you think?
All right, Scott. This is Harry, man. I'm calling.
Harry Bernard Taylor. All right, here we go from the. There you go.
All right, you skipped over. When you read my comment, you read it wrong. You thought I said the NWA. I'm talking about the NWA, the new NWA.
Right.
The old NWA, what I'm trying to tell you is the old NWA had a rule book in place.
Right.
They voted for presidents every couple years. They had Bob Geigel. I'm going back to Bob Geigel. Going back to Paul Bosch. I'm going back to Jim Crockett.
Okay.
Mike Graham. They had different presidents. And
Right.
a lot of these companies ran under the NWA. This is when the NWA had a lot of different companies under their system. Around the world, they had
Right.
43 different promotions at one time.
Right.
And the WWE, which was ran by Vince McMahon Sr.,
Right.
ran under them a good bit too. Even when he left, he was with the NWA.
Right.
And he left and came back. They still ran under those bylaws.
Right.
AWA, Vern Gagne adopted a lot of those same bylaws that he had and Vern Gagne had.
Okay. Wait a minute. Okay, wait a minute though, Harry. Today's wrestling. I mean, I understand all that from yesterday. When you had different areas in wrestling back then, they all had. You're explaining what I'm saying right now. There is no NWA. There is no states that are working together that are being a unit. There are a few companies here and there, but what I'm saying is, why can't we do this and cover the whole sport?
But yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying, Scott, but I'm just trying to say I'm using that as
and Gary said, who decides who are the good promoters? That's an opinion, Gary. No matter where you go with that, until they do make a rule book like that, that's an opinion. It's just an opinion.
Yeah. Only thing I'm saying, Scott, until we get something like that in place again, you're not gonna. These guys are not gonna agree on anything, and you just had people back there that was more sensible and
I mean, James said the territories. Yeah, when we had the territories, and that it was easy to do that. Like you said, NWA had all these territories, and they went all under NWA rule books, and they had their sanctions, and they even used them in some of their works in their storylines. You're getting suspended because you did this, and it broke this rule by the NWA. Right. I remember that, but I'm just saying, there's nothing like that.
You had these, and that's why they called it wasn't really independent territories or whatever. They called them outlaw promotions because they didn't want to be affiliated with them.
Right.
So you had that.
Right.
But now, with the way wrestling is being presented, and anybody can start up a promotion.
Right.
And like you say, you have these backyard promotions and things like that. No problem with that. I mean, hey,
But the thing is, what I'm trying to say is we these ones that aren't going by the bylaws of real wrestling, that have the right equipment there, the right safety stuff, the guardrails, why not make a set of rules? And I know South Carolina does it, or these few states that have that have where you have to go get a license, they have that. But why not make a set of rules for everybody? And if you can't abide by those set of rules, then you don't have an organization, and you can't wrestle. You can't get a wrestling license.
It's gonna take the top people in wrestling today to be able to put that together, Scott.
I understand. This is just a talk show. I mean, I'm just putting it out there as a talking point. I'm not, don't think that I'm like, yeah, we got to do this today. I understand nothing's going to get done today, but if we all start talking about it, and it can be a reality, because you see Major League Baseball, you see all these other people doing that. So I know it can be done. It's just who's going to stand up and do it.
When it boils down to it, Scott, what you're doing, you're getting into a political discussion here about this. I mean,
but why would it be political? Listen to me, Harry. The only political thing that I mentioned about the whole thing, where I said, get a commission. Okay. Get a commission that covers all 50 states. You have to, as a promoter for each one of your states, you have to buy in. You have to go and buy a license. They have to come out. They have to inspect your ring, inspect your make sure you have a med kit, make sure you have a medical person on file, make sure you have this, and I understand this all takes money. It takes time. You got to write the rules. You got to get the people, make it like where, each one of the, like for baseball, Major League Baseball, some teams have to pay to be part of Major League Baseball. If you're a AAA, AA, single A, you have to kind of pay to be a part, pay to play. Same thing here. Why can't we do that?
True. That's true.
I mean, let's have some real talk.
Let me ask you a question. What happens to that wrestler that, you know, the guy who's out in his backyard, man, trying to put something together, you know, trying to these guys who getting taking $75 here, $200, $300
right,
to train up guys that's not really ready. And I mean, back in the day, it used to cost between $3,000 and $6,000 to train a wrestler.
But that's what I'm talking about. If we get a whole, and again, this is, you know, this is like, you know, this would take 10, 15, 20 years to develop. You know, Major League Baseball and NFL and all that didn't do this overnight. I understand that. They had to develop it over the years too. But at what point does wrestling start to do this? Because Michael said MLB has billions to share, wrestling has $0 to share, and breaking even is often a good night. Well, Michael King, wouldn't, if there were rules through the whole thing and everybody had to follow the rules, the ones that could follow the rules and have the money, wouldn't they be called the good promoters, the good companies, and weed out all the ones that don't have the money to do all this, and they're you know, shorting wrestlers, and they're on the run all the time, and they're shady, and they're, you know, like I said in my last promo, we know who these people are. Wouldn't that weed them out?
Oh, wow. I'll tell you what, Scott, I'm eating lunch, man.
All right, bro.
You real quick.
All right, man. Harry Bernard Taylor, one half of the wrestling show. Go check it. Go Straight Up Wrestling Show. Go check them out. Go on YouTube. Go on Facebook, man. Give them a like, share, hit the bell for notifications, all that good stuff. Thank you, Harry, for coming on, man.
Good discussion, man. No problem. Thank you, Scott.
All right, man. I just anybody else who wants to call in, the number's right there, 864-497-3784. I'd love for Michael King, if he had a second, or Bill Hazelwood to call in, Gary Benfield, anybody like that. He said 3 won't, to be worried making their guys look bad. Now everybody is an outlaw promotion. It said Bill Hazelwood. Oh my goodness, man. Gun laws don't get rid of laws. Same rules apply here. Well, but the thing is, wouldn't it get rid of most of them? I mean, I'm just trying to do something or put a conversation out there, Mike, that would, and I hope you don't mind me calling you Mike instead of Michael all the time. Mr. King, wouldn't you agree that, you know, the complaints are out there, everybody knows who the bad ones are? Wouldn't a set of rules or guidelines or laws or bylaws, whatever you want to call them, wouldn't that weed out? I'm not going to say everybody, because there's some people that, you know, instead of that, we might have, you know, 10 people who don't run a show combined together to make the money to run a show. But you know what I'm saying? If you had rules and regulations and guidelines, and I'm talking about for the wrestlers too, you know, you got to train for a certain amount of time. You got to, Gary came in late on the conversation. He's asking who would enforce them. What I'm talking about, Gary, and I know this is like a pipe dream, but I'm saying, if Major League Baseball, the NFL, and NBA could do it, why can't wrestling have an organization run all 50 states with the rules, and everybody in each state sends a representative. They vote on a representative or something. You know, I this is not a perfect, I'm just, you know, going on the fly with this, but, you know, you have a that cover all 50 states. They all sit down. They all, you know, bring in promoters from all the states. They make a rule book about what should be at a promotion, what should, you know, what makes a wrestler qualified to wrestle, you know, before you can get in the ring to, you know, wouldn't it stop a lot of these guys from training for 10 seconds and jumping into the ring and hurting other people and hurting themselves and making wrestling look bad? Wouldn't a set of rules do that good? I'm just saying, I understand it's going to take a billion people to agree, and we're probably not going to agree, and it's going to take a ton of money and this and that, but it can happen if the right people, you know, get together and make it happen. I don't believe that, you know, you can't say nothing can happen, because Major League Baseball is doing it. It took them years to get it right. NBA, it can happen, but somebody's got to get the ball rolling again. It's one of those things that you're either on the side of, well, it's been that way for 30 years, we might as well just keep going, or be on the side of, hey, We see the bad crap. Let's start making some changes to the thing we love, and let's get this thing better. Good promoters, in my opinion, are those who follow the rules set in their area, pay fairly, stay honest, treat people respectfully. I understand all of that, Cole, and I don't disagree with you. And nobody on this panel or a talk show or anything else would disagree with you. But what I'm saying is, with you saying that, okay, let's use pro wrestling. Since you brought it up, we're going to use Pro Wrestling Union as an example. Pro Wrestling Union runs in South Carolina, so it runs under a commission. They all have rules. You follow those rules to a T, Cole, and you run your show, and all your wrestlers are have a code that they have to go to because you set that you know what I'm saying? I know you're answering Gary's question, but you're helping me on my show too, sir. You're helping me out, whether you want to or not. We know the answers to this. And if we make rules and regulations, then we'll get the ones that don't have the money when they start their show, don't have, that don't have all their safety equipment, that don't have all this stuff. We'll run them out of business, or they won't go, because if enough people drop, again, you have to have people who are going to tell people, hey, this guy ain't running right. I'm not talking about, going with a fine-tooth comb, but we know the ones that are bad. We know the ones that, people can get hurt, fans can get hurt, and wrestlers, we talk about it all the time. Well, this guy's only been trained for 2 months. He shouldn't even be looking at the inside of a ring. But here he is talking on #truth, and he's doing this and doing that. Well, if you all come together and make a rule in South Carolina or anywhere else that you have to train for 2 years at a legit training school, and that board that sees over all 50 states makes the rules, and if you want to be one of those training schools, you have to go and legitly get a document that says you are a training school. You know what I'm saying? I just don't believe that it can't be done. I mean, it's not going to be easy, but you can't. If all the other sports do it, why can't wrestling do it? If we could develop the territory system again, that's the answer. Weed out all the garbage. And okay, either way, then Gary, why can't we bring back the territories? Why can't we do that? Because and then this right here boils down to, okay, all the companies are taking the responsibility. Okay, this is saying the companies, individual companies, are taking the responsibility, and they're coming together to make a set of rules for an area. But then we get into the conversation, Gary, and it's coming from everybody else. They've already said it 20 times on comments here. You can't get 10 owners to sit down at a table and agree on nothing in professional wrestling today. Let's talk #truth. You might get 2 or 3, but you ain't going to get 10 or 20, and that's sad. Because everybody's worried about one company making the other look bad. And I love it, man. I even got my buddy Chuck up in this one, boy. If the territories come back, I think it would happen. But nobody wants to do this. Egos get involved. Promoters are too worried that titles will be lost at other promotions, and promoters have their own agendas wanting this guy to be champion for the group. But you got to work it out. They did back in the day. They worked it out. That NAW, Ric Flair took his championship. How many places did Ric Flair take that NAWA championship, NWA championship, any championship that he held? How many places back in the territory days did he go? And don't tell me, well, that's Ric Flair. It could have been anybody. You know what I'm saying? You're getting back into the stuff that I was talking 5 years ago when I started this. And I said, promoters need to all come together. And if promoters all come together and make these rules and weed out the bad ones, we wouldn't have, I wouldn't have a show, because it would be so good in professional wrestling. You know what I'm saying? The promoters would have to put together a board, and that board to make decisions for all companies involved in that territory. I mean, Gary, we know how to do it. Everybody who, has followed wrestling for more than 10 minutes, especially us podcasters and everybody that's in here having this conversation, we know that. But why can't we get it done? And most of the time my answer is ego. I get the answer. It's the promoters' egos, and it's, But I'm not the one out there putting money. It would consist of every owner plus one. And I don't know that because I've never owned a company, so I don't know how it feels or what you guys, I can sit here and play owner, but I'm just a fan. I don't know. That's why I'm asking questions. Why can't we do this? And I'm getting people who are saying, yeah, it can be done. And then they stop right there. And I got some people that are going, no, this will never get done because, and they give me 50 reasons why it won't get done. So who are the 8 promotions and one non-affiliated person to be on the board? I don't know. I don't know. I couldn't answer that question, Michael King. I don't own a wrestling company. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to bail out like that, but I'm just asking, see how the conversation, this is making conversation and a lot of people are talking, and that's what hashtag true. That's what I'm trying to get to in wrestling right now. And I truly want an answer. Why isn't there a rule book? I'm not talking about the unwritten rules that we talk about all the time. I'm talking about a real legit sit down rule book for wrestling, independent professional wrestling, all the way up to in WWE, all the companies that have contracts have those. They have a rule book that they give their personnel that tells them what they think professionalism is. And if you go outside that box, we're going to fire you. Why can't every company do that? And it won't be a blame at all if you walk up, if you call up and if you call a promoter that has that rule book and has that rule book out in public, that says what he wants, and a guy calls up and he's like, give an example like Gary. I'll just throw his name out there. And this is not how Gary acts, but I'm just saying, somebody calls up HVW and says, hey, I want to wrestle for HVW. Well, how long you been in the business? 3 months. How long have you trained? No, I've been in the business a total of 3 months. Well, I'm sorry, you're going to need a couple more years because my bylaws, my laws up here, if you go look, says you have to have 2 years of training. You know what I'm saying? It's just fun. I think they keep the territory to 5 companies. That makes your board 10 strong. I mean, you could do that all. We know there's probably 50 different ways you can do a territory. But what I'm saying is my question, I want to keep to the question is, why can't we make rules for professional wrestling like every other organization of sport has done? Why can't we do that? That would internally police all the ones that aren't in it to win it. Do you think a person who doesn't want to be in professional wrestling for life, if there was a bylaw saying that you had to train at a legit training school that was under this, that you have to go pay $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 to pay and to be there for 3-4 months, you have to commit to that area. You have to leave your job and commit to that, training, and you have to legit end that training. And then you have to, and once you're done with that training, you have to go and you have to go get, whatever state you wrestle in, you have to get a license for each state because each state's going to have their own rules and this and that. Why can't the rules be made like that? Because you're going to weed out the hackers. You're going to weed out the non-lifetime wrestlers when you do that. Because not everybody's going to go pay, $5,000 to go get trained. He said, keep it local, Scott. I'm keeping it local. I'm trying to keep it local. If that committee up there and it went down to it would come down to local like that. Why couldn't that get done? Why couldn't that happen? I'm just saying. Chuck said, look, it all comes down to brands getting huffy and puffy because they're this wrestling show being better than that show or this show. That's just ego, bro. It goes back. You're right. You're saying ego. If you watch Cobra Kai and the Karate Kid, the mentality. People, yeah, exactly. That's a good man, I'm telling you, that was a perfect thing to say. Just like Cobra Kai and Miyagi, though. They both thought they were the best, and they keep fighting, and they've been fighting for years, and they're instilling it into their kids, and they're still. I get it, but karate has rules, Chuck. When you go to a tournament, they got rules, and they make sure that's where they go and do the fights because there's rules there. Do you see what I'm saying? You just led me right into the same thing I was saying. Even Karate Kid, even Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do had to go to the wrestling, the karate championships and go by the rules. Why isn't there rules in professional wrestling? That's what I want to ask. Why isn't there? That's what I want answered. Why isn't there a rule book that says you have to train this long, you have to do this, you have to be professional, you have to, abide by a certain amount of this and that. And if you own a company, you have to abide by this rule, that rule. You're going to weed out the bad ones. The good ones are already doing all this. In my humble opinion. Okay, it's opinion right now because there is no rule book. It's all opinion on who's good and who's bad. It's all opinion. In each of our opinions, we know who the good ones are and who the bad ones are. We know the people who ain't paying, the wrestlers that ain't training, the all of it. If we made a rule book, gone. We made a rule book, gone. I think you would weed out a lot of. There's going to be some posers in there that stick around for a little while, but eventually, just like any other time, skeletons come out of the closet and boom, they're gone too. I just food for thought out there, guys. I've been on for 50 minutes. I'm about to get out of here. Be sure to watch Ron Emerson tonight. I believe he has a show at 4:00. He's going to be interviewing one of our local wrestlers here, man. It's going to be fun to watch. Michael said there are probably a dozen reasonably good promotions in North Carolina. Chuck said, I see what you are saying, but what the promotions are not looking at is this, and he's going to continue, so I'll wait for him to finish. Just coming out with a new company in Georgia, and you're right, there's not a lot of rules, but there's some, not a whole lot, but we got to try to do it. I've been in the business for about 25 years, and I read it. It's several other guys been in it for that long, I believe. Hopefully we can get it going good. Yeah, I mean, I'm not bashing people for making organizations or bringing in new organizations or anything like that, Brian, if that's what you think. I'm really not doing that. If you come in and you do it, the way the unwritten laws that everybody knows is right, then great. Welcome aboard. Hope all the wrestlers have fun at your organization. Hope they get paid. If they do, then it trickles down and the fans are happy, then I'm happy. You know what I'm saying? WWE and personnel from AEW has to sit down and agree to get the ball rolling. Why does it have to be the big companies like that? I'm talking indies. They already have theirs. They have theirs because of contracts. See, here you're getting into contracts now. I'm not talking about we can do it without doing contracts and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to keep away from the contracts and that because this is indie I'm talking about. You know what I mean? But there could be a set of rules that prevent a lot of the bad indie shows from even forming or even, trying. You know what I mean? Hey, Brian Hawks or Brian Kanabrowski would be better to talk about this. Brian, I've talked many of times with Brian Kanabrowski. He's been on the show here many times. I used to have his phone number. I still might. I might call him up and ask him about this because I would really, you're right, Cole. I would love to hear what Brian Kanabrowski is. Brian Kanabrowski puts money into his organization and money comes back twofold. He's a businessman. He knows, the ins and outs and stuff like that. You're not going to tell any indie promoter what to do, period, the end. If it becomes law, then they have no choice, Bill Hazelwood, or they just find out. You know what I'm saying? I was saying the indies will follow if groups sat down. I get it. And I agree with you, sir. If you had a show that gathered together under one banner, how much money would be made? How much money would be made at this one-time event? The conventions that happen in North Carolina makes money hand over. Yeah, exactly. You said law with question marks. What I'm talking about, Bill Hazelwood, is actually having a commission. Again, I'm going to start all the way back over. Having a commission over all 50 states for wrestling, for indie wrestling. Instead of South Carolina having one. Okay, you have a commission over all 50 states. Okay. and they have people from each state come in and make rules that cover all 50 states. These rules are like laws. If you break any rules and somebody catches you, you can be fined 15,000, 20,000, whatever, and lose your license. Because if all 50 states were covered, everybody would have to have a license in one way, shape, or form. Money would be rolling in independent professional wrestling because you're going to have stuff coming in from the top. You're going to run it just like Major League Baseball or National Football League or something like that. That's the model that I'm kind of leaning toward, because they have laws and rules in their, in their rule book that tell you, hey, and the Major League Players Association sign off on these rules and stuff like that says, hey, if you do this outside of your football field or out in public, you do this, you break a law, you do this, blah, 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 you can no longer play for our organization and any of its teams and any of its, affiliates underneath it, the whole 9 yards. Why can't professional wrestling police themselves like that and make something like that happen? That was the question. That's the question. And I want real talk. And Bill Hazelwood, I know you could give it to me. Ricky Nelson is actually the promoter you need to talk to. He has ran for 24 years full-time as a promoter, has made 6 figures a year, does everything right every time. But how many crappy organizations that don't do half of what you just said, that don't pay the rest of the, are within a 100-mile radius of Ricky Nelson and his promotion? We could weed most of them out if there was bylaws, laws, and things you actually had to cover. You see what I'm saying, Bill? We always talk about, you said it yourself, 90%. You said this on my show the other day. Correct me if I'm wrong. You said 90% of independent professional wrestlers and organizations should bite the dust because they're crap anyway. Why not make rules and boundaries and things like that? We might not be able to cut the whole 90%, but I'm pretty sure we could put a majorly good dent in it. Could we not? I mean, I'm talking real talk. I'm not talking just, to be talking. I really want to see professional wrestling get better. I truly want to. I've said it on all these shows. I'll say it again. The give me something to invest in ain't just a moniker for me. I want to be able to pick a show. If I go to a show and I know that it's going to be one of the best shows, all 6 matches, 7 matches, 8 matches, 50 matches, no matter what you have for your show, are all going to be awesome with decent wrestlers, good wrestlers, trained wrestlers. And all of them are going to get paid, and the fans are going to have enough seats out there, and the fans are going to be happy, and it's going to be in a good building or a facility. I can't forget AWL. They're not in a building, but you get what I'm saying. AWL is a great place, even though it's a backyard. It's not a backyard show. Trust you me. But 90% or more. But again, who makes rules? I got to go over it again, Bill. Come on. I just said it. Make an organization, a wrestling organization over all 50 states. This is just a quick throwdown. I mean, there's a lot more detail that I have to go into, but make a wrestling commission over all 50 states for indie professional wrestling. All 50 states have to pay in. You have to get a license out of all 50 states, and it goes to that commission up there. Okay. Each state sends representatives, just like you would in Congress or whatever. Sends representatives to that. They all sit down, and these are voted on by organizations because we know who the good ones are. We know who the bad ones are. We'll vote the good ones to go up to represent and make a rule book like Major League Baseball. Like, that organizations have to have this done. Players have to have this done. Okay. Or wrestlers have to have this done in order to be considered a professional wrestler and get into the ring. It's not rocket science. I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure that, money aside, Michael King could probably sit down in 10 minutes and make a rough draft of exactly what I'm talking about, and it would make perfect sense. I'm just saying, because he's totally a business mind. I'm not saying anybody else isn't, but maybe he could put out there, the state commissions now who are grabbing the money are not going to stand for it. But again, they wouldn't have a choice if it was made law. You see what I'm saying? You would have to make Major League Baseball and all that have to go under laws of the United States too. They have to, same thing. I'm saying if it's law, rules, law, I mean, it actually would be a law. These things would be laws and rules. It would break it down into, what you can do. You can even, fine people, blah, blah, blah. It can happen because minor league baseball teams do it. Single A, double A, triple A. If you go outside the rules, they can fine you just like a Major League Baseball player because they're under the same rules. And I know you understand what I'm saying. I know we have a lot of knuckleheads in wrestling, but there are a lot of smart minds too that could make that happen. You can't tell me they can't. If a hickabilly from Chesney, South Carolina, a Yankee who moved south can sit here and come up with that idea and that thing, why can't it work? I'm not getting anything that other than you're not going to get all these people to agree. Well, if it's voted on and it has to, then okay, contact your local congressman to get the ball rolling. Proof you are in charge of it now. You are in charge of it now. But I'm not in wrestling, Bill Hazelwood. I don't own an organization. I don't have a ball in the game. I'm a podcaster, but I'm trying to make real talk without, being shut down like this. This is not what I'm talking about. Okay. If nobody wants to do this, fine. Don't do it. Let wrestling sit for another 30 years with, no rules, no nothing. Everybody complaining, nobody getting anything done. I'm just, like I said, I'm trying to put a hashtag truth out there that somebody, I could start the ball rolling by giving that a call, but I have to have some owners who would get together with me and say, hey, I'll put my name on there. How many owners would put their, if I were to start a petition to have something like that, how many owners would put their name on it? How many wrestlers out there would put their name on that if I started? Because I started. I'm not even joking. I would start something like that. Who has the time to enforce that, though? They would need so many agents to be there consistently to check all these. And again, just like in the government, it trickles down to, each state has to have their own blah, blah, blah. And each state has to have a certain number of these people in each county to go out and check the commissions and blah, blah, blah. Right. Exactly. I agree. It's also my opinion. I agree. That's why I'm trying to have the conversation. If you have a better way, I'm all for it. You know what I'm saying, Ron? I'm not saying my way's the only way. Don't take it like that. But what I don't want to hear, well, it's been like that for 30 years. Well, it'll never happen because the owners, if somebody has to start. Oh, my boy Maddie has time. Have these infringes our post on YouTube for any and all to see. Have these infringes, Have these infringes our post on YouTube for all to see? I have no idea what that means. Government overreach is already a problem. Okay, government overreach where? Where is there government overreach in professional wrestling? That confuses me. Okay. But your talk is not real. 21 years in the business tells me it's not. Vince didn't like the rules. He exposed the business to stop them. Vince didn't like the rules. He exposed the business to stop the rules. So then why did they fire a girl just the other day? I mean, I know Vince isn't there anymore, but why did WWE fire a girl for doing something against their policy if they're not running the rules? I'm not understanding what this is saying. Government overreach is everywhere. Well, of course it is. I mean, we live in that kind of society now. Nobody's going to do anything about that either, but that's a whole nother, that's getting into politics. But half these things that go against the South Carolina AC rules are on YouTube for any and all to see. But the thing is, Mr. Greer, and I agree with you, Matty G, but are we policing ourselves to do that? If you go to a company and you see that they're not following all the rules of the South Carolina Commission, are we getting these guys shut down? No. Let's just be honest. No. He's talking about government overreach. I get it. It doesn't have to be a government, but what I'm just saying is somebody has to start the ball and saying, hey, this is the group that's going to lead everybody. Let's figure out a way to get this group put together. That's all I'm saying. It ain't got to be, man, I'm telling you, everybody wants to stretch this out this way and that way. And that's good. I'm glad, because at least we're thinking about it now. But I just think that changes can be made like that. There can be a rule book, or if you do that, maybe each company can do their own laws and bylaws and have that there and say, hey, if you come into, and I'm just throwing a name out there, hey, if you come into, pro wrestling union, these are the rules that I follow. And if you, not being a tyrant, but these are the rules. If you, break these rules, you're gone. Or you're not going to wrestle for me anymore. Or, you got to have, I don't know how to say it, man. Greed killed the territories. I agree 100% with that. Yes, Vince didn't like the national rules, so he admitted wrestling wasn't real. Now WWE has their own rules. That's the point. Just like I said, you are not going to tell a promoter what to do. Again, I'm not telling the promoter what to do. I'm just making rules for safety and yeah, you're twisting my words, but that's okay. I get it. I see what you're saying, Bill, but you're over here and I'm over here. I'm talking about, if you can't tell a promoter to have safety equipment there, to have a medical bag there in case something goes wrong, that's not telling them what to do. That's just being logical, and it's good for everybody. But I see what you're saying. I hope you see what I'm saying. As soon as you create a group, you will create an out group that feels slighted. They will run away and belittle the people who made them. Definitely. And to me, the territory days was the best in wrestling. Good promoters enforce rules even more strictly than the commission. The other promoters do what they want, and no one in the commission does anything about it. And whose fault is that, Ron? Whose fault is that nobody else does anything, or the commission doesn't do anything? Does the commission even know about it? Again, real talk. I know people are gritting their teeth and getting mad at me, but I want a real answer. Wrestlers are independent contractors. I have signed, released hundreds of times. They say you are doing this at your own risk. The commission's fault. Okay. Yeah, they get emails, videos, and everything else. Okay, well then maybe it's time to go after the commission if you're the wrestlers and you don't. I don't know. That's getting off my point, but the worker's fault for working, the promoter's fault for failing. Okay. Because you only know what you are permitted to know. So let me get this straight, Ron. In order to know what I want to know or what I think I know, should I just go and buy a ring and start a promotion? Then I'm one of the club. Then I can know the grand scheme. All the unwritten rules will fall in my lap. I don't understand what you're saying, bro. Because I'm just making an assumption out here and trying to make talk. Because again, I'm going to go back to the fact, and nobody can argue this fact with me, that every day, if you're a podcaster, if you're an owner, if you're a wrestler, if you're a referee, if you're a parking valet for or whatever, no matter what you do in a wrestling organization, there is complaints, this, that, the other. This guy's a mud show. This guy can't wrestle. This guy, but nobody wants to have answers to weed these people out. It's just, well, that's the way it is, and that's the way it goes. And each individual wrestling place is going to do it. But if nobody says anything to get anything done, then there's going to be a ton of no good places and very few good places. And we're just fighting the battle just to fight the battle. Why don't we win the battle? Why don't we try winning the battle? Why don't we try doing what everybody wants to talk about, but nothing gets done? That's my point. We're all, yeah. We know, but nothing gets done. That's my point, that nobody can take away from this. Nothing is getting done because everybody wants at the end of the day to go, well, that's the way it's been for 30 years. That's the bottom line that I hear. Bam, yes, run a show and you will see things much clearer. If I had a backing, I would. I seriously would, Bill. I don't have the money, so I'm not going to lie. Everybody knows I don't have the money anyway. And if I did, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to be the best and this and that and the other, but I know enough to know to run one. I've got enough information from everybody that's running it, that's giving me information, that's giving me this. I might not be the best. I won't claim to be the best. I won't claim to have the best show in the world. I won't claim anything, but I do have, I think I would have enough knowledge to actually pull it off without a hitch if I had the stuff, but I don't. So it's a pipe dream. Trust me, if I had it, I would be putting my money where my mouth is in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. And I would be working with all these other great promoters that I think are great promoters. And I would be trying to get us all together. And I'd be doing the same thing I'm doing here on Hashtag Truth. And I guarantee you, Bill, I would be still getting the same answers. Ultimately, there isn't enough respect for wrestling scene to police it. Thank you very much, sir. I needed somebody in wrestling to say that. Thank you. You just made my whole show with that line right there, Mr. Greer. Ultimately, there isn't not enough respect for wrestling scene to police it. There's not. Nobody wants to be the example of change. Thank you. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you. You just made the entire point. It takes thousands of dollars to run it the right way. Very few. Bill, you're making my point. If we had rules about what promoters can do or what they have to have at a show and the safety rules and all that, you're going to weed the bad guys out who don't have this money because they have to get all that in order just to run. You're making my argument for me. The good ones do have this. The good ones do have the money to pay their rest. I get it. We all know that. We all get that. But how do we weed the bad ones out? You can't just do good over here and think the bad guy over here is going to go away. It's not going to happen because that's the same stuff. There's just going to be more bad ones to pop up. How do we stop the bad ones? That's my question. And I was trying to give a legit, it was far-fetched. I get it because we're not all going to come together like that. But little ideas, we got an idea of bringing the territory back. We got an idea of open conversation for legit answers and not just, well, it is what it is. This is what it is. There isn't enough respect for wrestling to complete it. Name me 10 good ones. I might not be able to name you 10, but I can name you 3 or 4 off the top of my head. Who have the money. Like I said, I can't name you 10 because I honestly don't know 10. I know 3 or 4, I think. Maybe 5 if I sit here and think long enough. But the thing I'm saying is, though, we always talk about, I always hear for 5.5 years of me doing Hashtag Truth, I always hear the horror stories. This is a mud show. That's a mud show. This is a mud show. That's a bad place. This is a bad wrestler. These people don't train wrestlers, but these wrestlers are out there. Why aren't we doing anything about it? Why are we just saying there's no point because they're just going to keep coming? If you make rules, if you make this, if you can do that. If a few people would come together and start it, you might get the ball rolling. Then you are stopping the dreams of a lot of wrestlers out there that are blossoming today from these mud shows. No, I don't think so. I just think, Harry, that's going to force them to do it the right way. That's going to force them to go train somewhere with a certified trainer. And tell me how that's a bad thing. If you ain't got the money, it's like growing up playing football. If you ain't got the equipment to play, or if you can't pay the equipment, there's going to be somebody who's going to pay it for you if they really believe in you, right? You hear the football stories all the time. People, paying for them to train, paying for them to do this, go to football schools. There are training football schools out there, basketball schools, all that. These are the people that are paying the hard-earned money, that are dribbling all day long when they ain't doing their job. They're out there dribbling. They're doing their, learning their sport. Same thing should be the same thing with wrestling. You know what I'm saying? So where do you go and support the wrestling you watch? And they do all these things. Again, I'm not doing this to bash nobody or straighten out nobody. I'm just saying, if we're going to sit here and complain about the bad guys, and we know who the bad guys are, why aren't we trying to get the bad guys out of wrestling? And nobody wants to give me a damn answer. I'm trying to come up with a few solutions. Maybe they're far-fetched, but at least if enough people come to the table and start having a true and honest conversation, maybe we can weed some of this badness out. That's what I'm saying. And nobody wants to do it. Nobody wants to start it up. Exactly. That's my point. Most of the people on here, man, Harry, John, Chuck, Matthew Greer, Bill Hazelwood, Ron Emerson, Michael King. Let me keep naming names because of people that we're talking on here. All you guys are great wrestling minds. If you all own a show, or if you're part of a show and you come together and we weed out the bad ones, imagine how good wrestling would be all over the place. And all I keep hearing is, well, it's been that way for 30 years. It's been that way forever. Nobody wants to talk real talk. Why? Why aren't we wanting to sit down at the table and talk real talk? That's why professional wrestling, 90% of it, Bill Hazelwood, is a fire pit. That's why, because nobody wants to come to the table and legitimately do something about it. We all can talk about it. We all know it. We all can give the verbiage, but nobody wants to do nothing about it. I think Scotty trying to tell us just every pro wrestling should be professional, have good training, and is a point. Thank you. That right there would weed half the people out that are bad. Thank you, sir. At least somebody understands part of what I'm doing. That's what I'm saying. If you're going to be a professional wrestler, be a professional. Go train as a professional wrestler at a legit training school somewhere. Legit trainers. We know who they are, and I'm not going to sit here and name the ones, and I'm not going to name who the good guys are in the back, because we all know anyway. If you're a professional wrestler in your area, you know the ones that pay right, you know the ones that do good, the ones that have all the safety stuff, you know all the ones that, get together with you and agree on, who you're wrestling and blah, blah, blah. We all know who they are. Wrestling schools could be sanctioned under the territory's umbrella. There you go. Another solution if we get a territory. See? That's what I'm talking about. Instead of coming to the table with, that just costs too much money. Yeah, that's this. Yeah. You can start small and add to it. The NFL, Major League Baseball, and all that didn't come up with their rule books and everything overnight, but they came up with one. Why can't we? That's my question. Why can't we? And I'm not getting a legit answer. I'm getting, too much money, but Major League Baseball did it. Well, they got billions of dollars. They didn't start off with billions of dollars. They started off with 8 baseball teams, and nobody even knew the game of baseball existed when they started. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying. I'm tired of listening. And I'm not saying that you people aren't smart, the ones that are doing this, but I'm tired of hearing that's the way it's always been. You're never going to change it. I'm tired. I don't want to hear that answer no more. And if that turns you off to my show, if that turns you off to what I think about wrestling, if you just want to, put me over here in the category of being a fool, that's fine. But don't ever say I don't love the sport of professional wrestling, because I'm trying to make it better. I'm trying to make real change, at least in people thinking and people talking, instead of just complaining. Why aren't we doing something about it? Hope this doesn't sound bad, But for me, I can only control me. I don't think I can get rid of the bad. Therefore, I only help out 3 Count and Pro Wrestling Union, and that's because that's the places where you work, Matty G. But you're making those places a better place because you do it legit. You get a license if you have to have a license. You come in and you are dressed to the hilt with your bow tie and everything, looking professional. You come in and you treat everybody the same as a professional. But there's, the unwritten rules and you follow every one of them. And that's why everybody who's ever been a part of you or any of your shows or anything that you do, you are a professional. Nobody's ever not said you weren't, at least not in front of me anyway. Okay. And I understand this. I can only control me, but if you control you, then it passes on to somebody else. And if these guys ain't getting it, we need to weed it out. I'm sorry. I just got to say how I feel. It's too far gone right now, Scott. The system has to be totally broke down for it to get right. How far does that have to break down, Harry? At what point? Good people be left out and unfairly. I don't understand that. I really don't. Good people aren't being left out of all the other sports. I've heard rags to riches story. I hear rags to riches stories every day in baseball, football, basketball, soccer especially. People coming from absolutely nothing, a tin hut, and becoming $1 million soccer players. So explain to me how some people will be left out. If you've got the talent, if you've got the drive, if you want to make this your goal, Mike, didn't you tell me this at one time? If you want to make it happen, then put forth the effort to make it happen. Go and make a plan and stick to that plan. Don't tell me wrestling already has a click, but I agree with that. Wrestling has a huge click problem, but that's a whole story for another show, brother. See, we can go on. We know the problems. We know all the problems, but how do we fix it? I want to start learning how to fix it. You know what I'm saying? I have to call back in. No, I'm about to end it, Harry. I wish you could call back in, but I'm about to end this, man. We've been on here for an hour and 22 minutes. I enjoyed everybody coming on. Harry, Mike, Johnny Smith, who is Chuck, everybody who called in, thank you very much. Just something to think about and to talk about. I truly do want to see change in professional wrestling, and I do, and I will always promote professional wrestling. I will call me after the show's over, brother, if you got something to tell me. But yeah, I love professional wrestling so much, and I love bringing wrestlers to people out there, and it's just hashtag truth. I want to live up to the moniker, man. I want to have real talk. I don't want to have the talks like most, and I'm not down in any podcast, but most podcasts, is about the AEW and this and that and book couch booking and blah, blah, blah. I want to have real talk about real issues in indie professional wrestling. Let's sit down and if you love it, don't you want to make it better? I do. And that is the hashtag truth. We'll see you guys tomorrow night on the show. We're going to be talking some more about the NAWA Stampede. So Bunkhouse Stampede. So come back then. And if you guys have any other things you'd like to talk about, if you have any other things that you'd like to have on the show, questions or anything that you'd like me to bring up, just personal message me, and I would be more than happy. If it's a discussion I think worth having, I'll be more than happy to bring it up, give you the credit for it, and we can talk about it. But I want to do that, ladies and gentlemen. Hashtag truth is always going to interview the young kids in professional wrestling and give them a place to go. But I want to talk about real talk too. And I understand that, I might be off base. I might not have good ideas, but the ideas are out there. And I know all the brains out there have those ideas. I know I know a ton of people who know a ton of things about wrestling that if they were to get the ball rolling instead of me, because I would still have a million questions, but they already know it, they should get the ball rolling, and I'll help them in any way, shape, or form to get the signatures they need or get, the information out there or what have you. But let's have some real honest hashtag truth talks. when we have talk shows like this, because this conversation is had not even close to being over because we've done nothing. But I'm just saying, at least have ideas and bring ideas to the table. You know what I'm saying? All right, guys, have a great day. If you have anything else to tell me, go ahead and DM me. I'm getting off of here. I'm going to relax for a little while. Y'all have a great day.